In this episode, we're taking a look at one of the very first rentals I can remember, Super Pitfall for the NES. I'm not 100% sure, but I suspect that I heard of the original Pitfall from the Atari 2600. Back then, Activision made some of the best games for the system, and legend had it that the group of Atari engineers kind of grew frustrated with because Atari was making millions, but the developers they weren't seeing any royalties from any of this, and they also didn't have their names on the boxes. So they decided to jump ship, start their own company, and that company was Activision. Years go by, and the NES becomes kind of a juggernaut, and someone says, I think we'll take that Pitfall game, one of our biggest hits, and bring it to the Nintendo. Think of the possibilities, the pits, the traps, the treasure, and more adventure than ever before. When I saw that box on the rental shelf, it practically leapt into my hands. I thought, this is going to be great. Then, of course, you climb down the first ladder and die. Then you die again, and again. What was I supposed to do? Why did I keep dying? After one weekend, I had enough. I never wanted to see the cartridge again. But it never left my mind. Years later, I wasn't surprised to see the angry video game nerd tear it apart. But now, it's my turn to get my $2 worth of revenge. Let's fire it up. Start with a blind run and see what these old eyes think of it today. That was even more annoying than I remembered. For starters, you can't hit the low-profile enemies at all. And the physics, there's absolutely no air control. Once you start falling, you're committed to wherever fate is before you. The jumping just feels erratic and unpredictable. One minute I'm overshooting a platform, the next time I'm just falling short completely. And then there's the combat. You can shoot right through the bats without hitting them. I have no idea what items I'm supposed to pick up, and the hidden items are just like the worst. You have to jump in just random spots and hope they just kind of start to show up. The level design's a mess. I usually love exploring, but this game feels completely aimless. There's ladders to nowhere, and then there's collision detection. It's kind of like a roll of the dice if you can hit them. Some walls you can jump through, others are solid. Then combine that all with limited lives, zero continues, and it's just brutal. Honestly, I think my family probably returned this rental to the rental store early. And just hoped to exchange it for something or anything else. Well, not this time. I'm going to get my revenge. I need to gear up, and I'm gonna need maps and guides. Of course, these are mandatory to survive the jungle. Patience and save states, I'm gonna be using a lot of them. It's way too easy to end up just in a dead-end state where the progress is impossible. I'm also starting to suspect Activision didn't have much to do with the disaster. The credits said it was reprogrammed by Pony Canyon. Well, Pony Canyon, has a bit of a reputation. I think I need to look into that. Alright, I've done some digging, and I found some very interesting and frustrating bits of information. First off, it's Microtronics, I think that's how you pronounce it, actually developed the game. Pony Canyon just handled the Japanese release, and Activision brought it to the States. That kind of explains a lot. I also finally figured out the objective. I'm supposed to rescue two trapped friends, Rhonda and Quick Claw, and then also collect the Raja Diamond. And then somehow make it back to the starting point. It would have been really nice if the rental case had come with a manual. Luckily I found a guide and was able to track down some maps. These are going to be absolute lifesavers because the level design is a labyrinth. And get this, Some areas can only be reached by warp vultures. And here's the kicker, not all the vultures are warps, so some are just vultures. Ugh. It looks like it's going to be the first order of business just to hunt down the right items. So armed with the tips, a guide, and a map, it's time for round 2. Let's do this. Armed with my maps, I took it slow. The strategy was clear. I traversed the tops of the map to collect the 3 crystal balls. They're kind of the spade, the heart, and the clover. And then I took a shortcut straight down to the bottom of the mine. I realized quickly that it almost always is better to just dodge the enemies than to try to find them. Because if you're fighting them, they're almost impossible to hit anyways. It's like the frogs, even though they're so slow, they have like Matrix level reflexes. They're able to duck and dodge your bullets. It's unbelievable. Still, I was making progress. Once I had the crystals, it was time for the main objective, the diamond. Then the rescue missions. Getting the Raja diamond requires looping back from the bottom of the map all the way back to the top, and involves some kind of like gnarly rope swings. These are incredibly hard to connect with. And missing them, a jump is devastating because you have to loop all the way back. This is exactly where the save states come into clutch. So I had to contend with some spike smashers that also required like high precision and short hopping to clear. And of course you have the giant Easter Island heads chasing you down. You can't outrun them, so it's all about timing. Honestly, seeing the head is actually kind of a relief, because that means you're on the right track. After grabbing the diamond, I had to hunt down the key to free the lion. Then comes the arduous climb towards one of the most diabolical mechanics I've ever seen, the warp vultures. It's insane. Not all vultures are warps, and not all warps are helpful, but you have to hit the right specific one to reach the hidden map. Once you get into this subworld, you have 3 goals. You gotta find a potion. You'll need that one later. Then you gotta locate and free Quick Claw, the lion, and find the hidden exit. And I mean hidden. There's no door marking it. You just have to jump at a random spot in the air. Without a map, you'd be stuck here forever. Exiting then drops you back into the main area, right kind of where you need to be for the final stretch, which is the Dark World. The entrance is again tucked away in the top right corner of the main map, but once you enter, the music finally changes. And thank goodness, because there's the difficulty just ramps. The enemies here actually shoot back, they take multiple hits to go down. Just made a break for the middle section to find Rhonda. She's basically a zombie until you use that potion to restore her. Once she's free, the music shifts again, to kind of a variation of the title theme, signaling it's time to go home. But escaping the Dark World's a nightmare. You have to climb all the way back up to the top, and then there's like these swinging ropes of death. One missed rope and you're falling all the way to the ground. I might have used a few save states, let's just say, forget some of the retries. I finally made it out. The final task, you have to travel all the way back to the exact pixel that you started the game with. And the reward for the effort, a few lines of text. And there's a second quest, where all the items reshuffle around. But trust me, one trip through this jungle is more than enough from this guy. So, what are my final thoughts on Super Pitfall? After all these years, it's still a massive pain. And let's be honest, it's not a great game. However, buried underneath all those rough spots and questionable design choices, there's actually an interesting game here. Of exploration, secrets, and surprises. I'm glad I finally put this one to rest. You can see its potential. With a bucket of tweaks and some actual gameplay testing, this could have been a classic that we all kind of look back on fondly. Unfortunately, this just wasn't the case in our dimension, and I seriously doubt that any kid would have sorted this out back in the day without a guide or a map. For a kid that just rented it on the weekend with no instruction manual, there was no chance of ever seeing that ending. But hey, maybe the developers knew this, and maybe they knew that the game would haunt us for decades, and that someday in the future we'd finally see those sweet misspelled words, "Congratulations, you completed the game." Well, Until next time, I'm pulling for you. Let's get some revenge.